A good garden starts here, at the very first hint of spring, with good rich earth, and with the magic of the first green up when the frosts are still cold, and the nights bite hard. We moved tons of compost created by our livestock and gathered from our barn and meadows and aged for a year in mounds, out to the gardens where it is tilled into the soil. Daphne and I, sometimes with the help of friends, then dig out the edge of the gardens to keep out weeds that like to spread through their roots. And then Daphne demarks the beds with string and does her famous bed dance, known the world over for its grace and feminine charm. And it does provide a quick and easy way to tell us where to walk when we work the beds. And in this last episode of 2019's Organic Gardening Series, I promised to review our progress with our leeks. And leeks begin with the very first thought of gardening when I'm first going out to assess the soil and determine what we're going to have to do to make things grow that year. The seeds are slow to germinate and are planted 2 months early in trays. When the tiny seedlings are 3 to 6 inches tall, they are transplanted outdoors and grown in a compact section of the beds until they are about a foot tall. At that point, the diminutive leeks are carefully pulled from the ground and the roots clipped at about 3 inches long. At both transplants, the roots are disrupted, and this is important in order to encourage leeks to grow. If this is not done, you usually end up with pencil-thin leeks even if you let them sit in the ground for half a year. We let the leeks grow right up till the very edge of winter. Leeks are typically pest and disease-free, but even during the autumn we have to weed them. Because leeks are so slow growing, weed control methods that we use, such as deep bedding, do not work so well with them. Leeks do not get very tall, even when they're very big, nor do they take up a lot of space. And being immensely slow to grow, weeds will simply outpace them, so we have to go through the garden several times during the growing season and carefully remove the weeds from the leeks. I say carefully because when the leeks are very young, it is quite easy to mistake them for weeds. But it's very late autumn now, and almost every night drops well below freezing. By my reckoning, when the days also start to stay below freezing, it's time to bring them in. They simply aren't going to grow anymore. Giving them every opportunity to grow this year was particularly important because a spate of summer storms that lasted nearly the entire month of June caused us to lose a whole month of growing time. Normally I would just use a hand trowel to sever the leek's dense and tough roots. But a sudden hard drop in temperature upon our mountaintop froze the upper few layers of the garden, so I just punched through the ground with a heavy shovel, pushing the blade of the shovel all the way into the ground to get it a couple of inches underneath each leek, and then breaking the roots with a quick pull upon the haft. It was pleasant enough work, but because of the short growing season, the leeks weren't quite as big as I would normally like to see them. Using our method, often we'll get leeks that are 4 feet long from rootstock to the tip of the leaves. Here's my daughter holding up some from a couple years ago, but due to this year's short growing season, they were only about 2/3 of the size. Still, we have a couple hundred of them, and that's more than enough for me and my wife through the winter. In fact, right about here I was pondering one of my favorite dishes, simple and easy to make, and I'll share the recipe at the end of this video.
That's a nice one there.
It's just potato and leek soup with bacon, and it's just my opinion, but I don't think there's anything better to take the chill away on these cold days. Over the span of an hour, I filled up crate after crate of the leeks and brought them down to the cottage's root cellar for Daphne to store away. A fire was going in the hearth, and as I worked, I could smell fragrant wood smoke coming out of the chimney. Somehow, wood smoke and leeks seem to go together like autumn and venison.
Lots of, even though it's littleish, lots of blanched area to this one.
So that's about all there is to growing leeks. They take more work than many of the other crops we prefer to grow. We tend to aim to cultivate things that are fast and relatively maintenance-free. But leeks are just so darn good and nutritious, they're worth the extra effort. In a nutshell, just remember, leeks need a lot of soil nutrient. Give their soil twice the compost you would put anywhere else in the garden. Start them in seed trays 2 months early. Transplant them twice at 3 to 6 inches and 12 inches, mutilating the roots each time. Water and weed often. They're largely diseased and pest-free, so if you just do that and use some jigs to help them establish blanched areas, you should do well, same as we did here, same as we do most every gardening season. And as I brought the last of the crates down to the cottage and grabbed my backup camera to take a quick photograph, our 6-month-old border collie pup, Gilly Doo, couldn't help but pose for the picture. He was so proud of those leeks, one would swear he grew and picked them. That's okay. Daphne and I don't mind sharing the fun. Thank you for watching. The Naturalist program is committed to the reliable coverage of all matter of topics relating to natural science, from ecology and conservation to the nature of the universe beyond our Earth, and making that information practical with solid advice on living well with the natural world. If you appreciate the program, please take a moment to subscribe. Subscribing costs nothing and never will, but it sure helps a lot.